The notices are extremely powerful. I know when I put the Canadian Prime Minister on notice, as soon as he received the first notice, he was actually in Saskatchewan getting ready for a $1,500 a plate fundraiser. And as soon as the notice arrived in Parliament, he canceled all of his fundraisers and events, and he flew back to Ottawa for an emergency meeting with his cabinet. So they are very powerful notices indeed.
Hi YouTube. We turn now to a conspiracy we have only dipped our toe in before, and we dipped it on the western side of the Atlantic. So it's back to dear Old Blighty now for some Old English Sovtardery. Our Canadian cousins are also represented.
So it gives me great pleasure to announce two guests tonight who are going to cover the subject of Article 61 and take us right the way through the journey of what it is, how it's used, all the best things that we should know about Article 61.
Magna Carta is our only forever binding constitution that predates Parliament, so they can't touch it. It can only be changed by the people via a constitutional convention of the people.
In 1666, what an odd number, the Parliament passed an act in secret that basically said that everyone was dead at sea.
And everything they've done is treason. And the treason goes back centuries. Yeah. They have completely hoodwinked the people. And it's time that we stand up and say no more of this. And once the people have redressed, we're actually going to have a constitutional convention of the people, and we will be removing the protection from Central London out of the Magna Carta, because Central London is actually run by Rome. So Article 61 gives us a way to pick up our pens and fight back. Actually, Article 61 does apply to the United States. Okay. They don't like to hear things like their Declaration of Independence is a treasonous document.
Okay.
But it is. In 2001, the Barons Committee discovered that the Treaty of Nice, was a treasonous document. Was a treasonous document. So they petitioned the Queen to rectify the situation and not grant royal assent to the Treaty of Nice. They gave her 40 days to ratify the situation, and she responded on the 39th day via her private secretary with an unsatisfactory response, basically saying she didn't have the authority to do that because the treason has been committed and the crown has been usurped. That left the barons absolutely no choice but to invoke the security clause. And they did so on March 23rd, 2001.
Okay, so not long ago, 19.
Is the only law in effect to this day. When Article 61 was invoked, because it is such a powerful law, there's actually a number of things that happened on that day. First, Article 61 became the only law in effect. The Queen was constitutionally dethroned. All of her governments throughout the Commonwealth were dissolved, and all treasonous documents became null and void. The government was dissolved. They have absolutely zero authority since March 23rd, 2001. They don't have the authority to make acts or statutes or legislation or anything else. They are criminal imposters posing as our government. They are an unlawful entity.
We don't have to be governed by them. We don't have to accept and consent to everything that they're doing. But the only way you can do that is by making a notice or an oath that says, I no longer consent to this. I no longer want to be a part of that. I am taking back my sovereignty and my God-given right to govern myself.
Understood.
Yes, and our oath actually breaks all contracts with the treasonous regime, and that includes the fraudful contract. The one I refer to most is Lord Craigmyle. He was involved with the petition to the Queen and the invoking of Article 61. And he's definitely accepting oaths. So he's the one we generally go to the most. We have many success stories throughout the Commonwealth. I myself have been successfully using Article 61 for over a year now. Okay. And I've got the Alberta Sheriff's Department completely terrified of me.
Fantastic. That's the oath, which basically says, dear Lord Craigmyle, which is one of the barons, in full knowledge of treason being committed in Parliament by delivering the sovereign peoples of this common law land into the hands of foreign powers, in understanding of some wrongdoings done by the present holder of the office of sovereign, from whom I now transfer my allegiance, do so willingly and wholeheartedly, enter into lawful dissent as the Lord demands by royal command, and I solemnly swear upon my oath to obey the direction of the Lord's Barons Committee, whom invoked Article 61 of the 1215 Magna Carta on the 23rd of March 2001 in accordance with royal command to do so, as long as said barons act strictly in accordance with the constitutional law at all times without deviation until such times as redress of these present wrongs have been achieved.
Sovereignty trumps all. You can be a free man, but you're not sovereign. Sovereignty means we are kings and queens in our own land.
Okay.
That sovereignty trumps a free man. It's higher status, shall we say.
There are basically different notices here that you'd have to serve, I believe, and they all need signing and witnessing.
The notices go in a particular order by putting a judge and the chief of police on notice.
That chief inspector who received that notice from you, if he didn't inform his officers all below him, that makes him malfeasance in a public office, right? He has committed a crime because
yes.
He has failed to inform every officer under him that you are under oath to the Magna Carta, and he has basically not done that. That's how powerful this is.
The notices are extremely powerful. I know when I put the Canadian Prime Minister on notice, as soon as he received the first notice, he was actually in Saskatchewan getting ready for a $1,500 a plate fundraiser. And as soon as the notice arrived in Parliament, he canceled all of his fundraisers and events, and he flew back to Ottawa for an emergency meeting with his cabinet. So they are very powerful notices indeed. David Robinson used Article 61 to actually seize Glastonbury Town Hall in 2015. So these notices can actually lay the groundwork for public building seizures. And we actually have a constitutional duty under Article 61 to seize government buildings and assets using Article 61. And that's really how we're going to seek redress. We have to take those buildings. They're our buildings. They belong to us. So by using the processes to lay the groundwork throughout the Commonwealth, it is our goal to do mass building seizures on an international scale, which will absolutely cripple the regime, and they'll have no choice but to give us the redress we are seeking.
Wow, that's extremely powerful. Now, if I had one thing I'd like to manifest and visualize, it's definitely that.
I wasn't sure what I was doing when that oath was presented. It was presented to me as something which might add a little bit of pressure, possibly within the media, give a bit of attention to what these four barons had already signed. I thought there was no harm in that. I was supportive of the whole idea and supportive of the idea of the separation of Britain from concentrated power in another country. And I am greatly enamoured of the Magna Carta and the Charter of Liberties that came before it, and I think we must hold on to our ancient liberties. But I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a historian, and I didn't have a view then, and I don't have a view now about what might be a useful way forward.
But you're receiving lots of Article 61 oaths, aren't you? At the
Maybe
moment?
as a result of giving my support at that time, I'm receiving lots of oaths from people. I haven't kept count. It's over several years, probably tens of thousands by now.
Wow.
And they mostly come to my home, which is in the Hebrides. And the reason they come there and they've been rejected by other barons is that my home is over the water. And the post office over the water does what is necessary to receive mail. So it's not me that's signing for them. When I go home, I find a pile of letters on the kitchen table which have this big yellow badge saying they have to be signed for, and I don't know who signed for them. Somebody who wandered into the shop at the time the mailboat came in, probably. So I can't say that I'm receiving them personally. I don't mind them coming, but I have to say that what upsets me slightly is a lot of these letters have personal testimonies within them, and I can't possibly open them all. I sometimes open them. I've answered one or two at random, but I can't open them all. And these are good stories of people who feel that they're not being heard, and they want to be heard. And I'm not the person to hear them, because I'm getting thousands of these things. I can't.
So,
can't
as
deal
I
with them.
understand it, then we should hold on to our own Article 61 oaths and not send them to you anymore.
Well, Caroline, if you can come up with a way of getting these Article 61 oaths, and also from people who've already sent them
Yep.
to me, because I haven't kept them all, and gather them into one place, it would be
Yes.
much more useful than them sitting on my kitchen table until they get disposed of. If you can gather those names into one place, you'll have a body of
An army.
an army. You'll have an army.
Have you got anything to say to the people?
Well, I'm probably not the person to give advice on the Magna Carta, on Article 61. I only knew about Article 61 when it was flagged to me in the House of Lords. I didn't do any research at the time. I trusted the people who were putting it to me.
Yeah.
I gave them my support. If there's anything I can do, I will, but I'm not sure that I'm being given some useful role here.